In this video, we're going to focus on the fetch API, but now also combining not only the data, but also the tooltip. So pay attention here on the tooltip. You can see it just has certain things. The moment we click on this, you see the labels change, the value change, but also the tooltip has new values in here, target 4, 5, 6, etc, etc. And when I click on this specific chart, again it changes, and then you can see here target is now 34, 35, 36, 37, and this is how we can play around more, because now we're connecting not only the data, but we're also going to connect the tooltip with the data. And this is just a next step into advancement in Chartjs. In this video, we're going to focus on one of the viewers' questions, which is how to update JSON data and tooltip with the fetch API in Chartjs. Alright, so this question came from one of my other videos about the annotation plugin, which is a quite nice plugin and it's quite quick to use with about creating lines on a chart. However, in here, in this specific video, if we scroll down, I've received a question from Adil Irshad. So first of all, a special thank you to Adil for asking the question. And this is what Adil has said. First of all, I'm stuck with a little problem regarding to tooltips for so many days. Can I get your email address? Well, eventually I refer to, you can always comment here in the comment section. I respond very quick, or at least if ever I can answer the question. And this is what he says then. I want to show data from API into the tooltip, but the data is in a form of an array. Now I don't know how to pass it to tooltip. And then what he says as well is, I know how to pass it to the data labels, by the way. Alright, since you already know how to have it in an array, that's already very positive. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down in every step here for you from scratch. So if everyone else will watch it, will follow along, or will be able to do the same thing what I did here. Alright. What we're going to do here is we have this item here, or basically we have this finance number 2.json file, and just check here. For example, this here, the target, this will be our tooltip value that will be matching with the items here. So we want to grab this, and then always when we are on the, depending on the stock here, or depending on this specific stock with the month, we want to see the matching tooltip value as well. Alright, so how are we going to do this? First of all, we're going to go to the default code here on chartjs3.com, getting started. And here, just a quick note here. I noticed for some reason, I'm using Let's Say Crib on this website, and for some reason it shows here not secure. Why? I don't know. I guess they have an issue. If I go to Stack Overflow, I get the same issue. So, and I noticed on multiple websites, same issue. So I assume that there's some problem with the SSL connection of Let's Say Crib, but who knows? Maybe it's my internet connection. So that's a quick note. So I have here a chunk of code, but maybe if you see this and you get this warning and you're afraid to use this, then in that case I would say just use any other default code. It's alright, it doesn't matter. I'm just providing this and I'm just telling you, just a quick note, it's absolutely safe, but if you're not trusting it, go anywhere else, get some code, it's fine. No worries about that. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to paste this chunk of code in here just to get a default code here. And then we're going to cut out this. I'll just put in here the title. And once I did that, I'm going to put this up here and save and refresh. There we are. So now we have a basic chart here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make sure, basically I want to do a few things. I want to create an interaction here as well. So we're going to put in here buttons, and these buttons will click and we will update the chart with it, and then we'll also update the tooltip values with alongside with it. Alright, so that's two different items we're going to work with. So now what we're going to do is the following. In here, we're going to first make, well, we could make just 3 buttons. Let's put it in here. So we say here button, and every button here, depending on the specific value. So remember here, we had these different values here. You can see, if we would click on button 1, we would see maybe company name is the chart. At least that's the one we want to pinpoint. And then the other one would be this. And the other one would be whatever this specific stock or company name is. So we're just going to grab this, or I will just say here Chartjs, that will be the company name. Then I'll just grab the other one here. This is Chartflix, that should be in here. And then final one would be here, what is that? Chart startup. Alright. I'm just making it up, as you can see here, just any item of it. So if you want to see here, this is basically the JSON file here. You can see here what it really has is exactly the same as what I had here. It's just the same code here. just readable on the browser, and this one is just the JSON file directly. Alright, so we have this here, we have the buttons here, that's done. Refresh, 3 buttons, nice. So next what we want to do here, and this is the trick I'm going to use. I'm going to use a simplified trick, and this simplified trick is allowed to be used as long as it is not in conflict, and repeat, it is not in conflict with any other object value that already exists in Chart.js. So we have here this, and we could just say here a value, let's say here an object, this could be, let's say target. It's very simple because we also have target here. So we're going to say we're going to put in target. Alright, and this target here eventually should have the array values here. I'm just going to grab some array values. Right now I'm just going to get this. And just put it in here. Alright, so what we really create here now is basically an object. Remember, Chartjs is still JavaScript. It is just readable for the API or for the Canvas API, but it's still a JavaScript item. So we can create this. As long as target is not an object within the JavaScript or the Chartjs library, we are safe to use that. So this is very important. So if I refresh here now, we have everything here. Oh, of course, why does it give an error? We forgot a comma here. So if I refresh this, we can open up the developer tab here, and I'm going to show you just a very quick trick here, or at least something. What we're going to do here is at the bottom, I'm just going to console log this. And this is just to make sure you understand what we're doing here. So I'm going to here from my chart, remember here, then to config.data, and then .data sets. The data sets is 0, and then we say dot target. Alright. So once we do this, we save that and refresh. There we are. You can see here it loads a lot. I have a setting here ready. I'm going to remove this setting just for the sake of it because it's just what is that? The cache. It disables the cache, and the reason why that's why it takes so much time here. So if I remove this, we'll just save this. All right. So this can be sometimes necessary if you update your JSON file and it doesn't update in here. If you see the chart is still using the old JSON file data, it means that the cache is still being saved, and using that trick is there to remove that saving of the cache, so you just get the fresh cache or the fresh values. Alright, so you can see here, this is just the item here, and if I do here now, tooltip, that's it, tooltip, refresh, there you are. So we have this here. Basically, this is the easiest way to do it. We can do it also with data structures, but that requires a different setup, and I will make another video about that as well. Alright, so now we have this here, we have all of these items. It's time to just work with the fetch API. And what we're going to do in the fetch API is very simple. We're going to put a new block here. And this is the fetch block. And in the fetch block, we're going to create a function. Alright, or we can do that later on. What we'll do is here async first, just to make sure it loads. Then we say here function, and then we can just say here stock data fetch. Alright, I'm just giving it a function name. It doesn't matter, anything you want, but be descriptive, it will probably be better. Alright, so in here, what I want to do here is basically we want to grab the values. So if I get here the val, oh, there's no values yet here, sorry. That's later on. So then what we need to do here is first of all the question, where do we want to grab the data? Alright, so before I even continue on, I noticed I almost forgot about it. I'm here right now on my local host. You're required to be in localhost, web server, or online. You cannot do it on a basic JavaScript file because it doesn't work, because you need to connect with a file, and we need AJAX connection for that, or the fetch API. So the link of that is on this case here in this specific folder, or it could be any URL or API that you grab it from. Alright, so we say here the following. We're going to say a constant URL. So where do we get the specific URL from? Then we can just put in this here. This is our URL. That's the URL that we want to grab it, or the file, with the data. So then we say here constant response. So we want to have now the fetch API. When we say to the fetch API, we're going to await, which means we're going to wait, or we're going to first grab something, but or we fetch it. And fetching, what does fetching really mean? The thing about fetching is you throw a bone to a dog, and you say to the dog fetch. What the dog will do is once you throw that, it will go and grab that bone and then come back to you. That's basically what we're doing here. And basically we're doing with an API. So this here, what are we going to fetch? we're going to fetch the specific values. So basically you order the dog, instead of getting the bone, we want to get the chart data. And that bone is then basically the chart data. Very simple. Or like a restaurant order, a menu, what would you like to get? You say, I want to have the chart data of this specific stuff. Alright, the waiter goes to the kitchen, makes the order, and comes back with the data served. That's it. Alright, so now we have this here. So we say here the following. We're going to put in URL, because where do we fetch the data? Well, we fetch it in this URL. Where do we get the data? This is the URL here, so that's the one we have. Alright, so we're waiting for the response. So then we say here, wait for the request to be completed. And then here what we do is the following. We'll just say here constant, and then we say data points, because we want to get the data points or the data. But I cannot use data here. Why I can use data? I have already a constant with data. So this will be in conflict, because we only are allowed to use once the constant variable. And of course you should not have the same naming, same names, because it will be creating trouble. So we say here the following. Then we say here await response, and we want to have this response in a JSON. We want to parse it. We want to parse the JSON. So it is JSON. Remember, this is just JSON file. It says here as well, if you look at the URL.json, it's a JSON file. But what we want to do is we want to parse this into, we want to parse the JSON into readable JavaScript. What is parse? Parse basically means make something readable for. Alright, so we make JSON readable for JS, JavaScript. Alright, so now we have this here, and let's look here now what would be eventually the response back. Do we get it? If the response is positive, we're waiting for the response, and it is positive, this would be the response. If I refresh here, and I realize that of course it doesn't work yet. Why? We need to activate it. So I'm going to say here onClick equal. Grab this here, this fetch. If I save this now, and it's only on the first one that works, so if I click on this, you can see here it works, and it grabs all the data of every single company name here. So there's 3 company names, but it grabs everything. Alright, so this is fine, but eventually what I want to grab the company that's matching with the button. So we're going to do that later on. So what I'm going to do next here is the following. So we have this here, and what I want to do here to make sure is to say return data points. Why I'm doing that? Basically here we have the console log, but we didn't store it yet. So we want to return the data points if ever we're going to use this function. Alright, and then why this is essential, that's basically this, because now we can get here, we're going to grab this function name, and then we say we're going to do this function. We say this function, and then we say dot. Then, so we want to continue with this function. So if you do this function, we're going to run this function, and then we want to do something with the data that it returns. And what are we going to do here is basically this. You say here data points, and then we're going to use the arrow function here. Basically we're going to say here the following what we want to do. And what we want to do here is we say here, well, let's first of all update this here. This is now days, but if you look at our item here, we have here the date, or basically not even the date, but the month. That's probably the right term. So we want to grab here the month. So we say constant month equals data points, and then we say dot. Alright, so what we're going to do here, remember, let's look at this again. So we go in here, and where do we need to go? We have the year here, but I don't want to touch the year. We're satisfied with the year, but we want to go into the financial report. But this financial report has, basically is an array as well. And it consists of this one here, of these data here, and you can see here 3 different stock data. But we want to go from the financial report, go to a specific array, which would be this one, for example, and you say array 0, which would show us company name Chartjs. And in here, we would want to go into the financials, to be specific, to grab these data here. Alright, so let's go and do this right now. So we say here, financial report as, then we say here is 0, if you want to have the Chart.js stock. And then we say here dot, and basically what we're going to do then is now we are in here, from financial report, and we are in here, then we want to go to financials, and from financials we can go in here. So we grab the financials, then we say dot financials, and in the financials we say dot map. Basically with the map we will loop through every value in that array. And it's quite useful with map. So basically it will run through every array. Instead of if you do a for loop, you have to do it with length, and then but you have to deduct 1 because we have length plus 1. So you have to deduct minus 1 because the array always counts from 0. But if you do map, it will just count every item there is. And that is quite nice. And that's very useful with map function. So we say here the map. Alright, so I'm going to just put this in here. But then we say here we need to make this a function. So we say function for every index. Yes, and what I'm referring to index here is for every of these items here. This index 1, 0, index 1, index 2, 3, and 4. Yes, so for every index here, then we're going to do here, say return, and we say index dot date. So we're going to grab the date here, and once we grab the date here, we have this, and then what we could do here is basically we could put this all together. That might be as well. It's up to you, of course, so it looks a bit more cleaner or more tight. So then we have this here. So we will grab this, return the date. Once we return the date with this specific date eventually can be shown in our labels here. So what we're going to do, eventually want to reflect that in here. How will we reflect it? Well, we need to update then the specific area. So we have this, and all I want to do now is the following. I'm going to put it here down, and then in here down we'll say here the following: console.log. First of all, we're going to grab the month, and here we'll put it in a semicolon just to make it neat. The month is this, so basically we should see here an array value of the item the moment we click on this. If I press on this, or it already works without clicking, it just loads it, I guess. And I correct fetch php.70, and that is correct. It already loads it nicely, instantly. Alright, so that works fine. It already recognizes it. So if you have this here, and we can now start to adjust this. So let's adjust this, and then afterwards you probably will very quickly understand how to do the tooltips as well. So what we're going to do now is here, basically we're going to say here, mychart.config. Remember, where are we going again? We go from mychart. Basically here, I'm going to just grab this one here. mychart.config data sets, and then what we're going to do here is not the data sets, but what we're going to do here is, or we are in the data sets, or no, sorry, we're not, because we're going to go to the labels first. So we're going to remove this, we say labels. Alright, so we say this, labels equals the month, and then what we're going to say here, the next item is mychart.update. Then we're going to update the value. Save that, refresh. Then when we click on this, oh, you can see already it just loads automatically. We even didn't trigger it yet, and later on we can make it with a button to trigger. Alright, so you can see here it works nicely. The values are the values also same? No, the values are not yet. So what we're going to do now is next to the values, and then after we're going to work on the final one, which is the tooltip, where you can combine it all with every specific tooltip here. Alright, same methodology. So if you understand this part, you probably will figure out that we just need to do here the same for the data points. So we're going to say your data points, and or maybe here we're going to get the revenue. And why the revenue here? Let's look at this. Here we have revenue, expense, profit. So you can get any one you want. So here same story this, but then we say here index.date, and I said here .date because of here. Now we can index.revenue. Alright, so once we grab that, and then what we could do here is exactly the same. I'm going to grab this, put this in here, and then we will say here, not labels, but then we say here, where is the data here? This is the one we need to change, so we say data sets, and then data. So data sets is an array because of this. So we say data sets, 0, and then dot data. Alright, so what do we get here? Then we say this equals, remove this semicolon here, that should not be there. And we say this one here equals the revenue value. Alright, so once we did that, if we save this, we should see now here, so you can see automatically while we refresh, it will automatically adjust immediately. Alright, so that's alright, later on we block that one. Final item then is here now, how can we do the tooltips? Alright, so with the tooltips, we will adjust basically the target here itself. So I'm going to grab this target. We say this dot target equals, and then we're going to make here. Basically, we could say here target. That's all right. And it's going to copy this. paste this in here, we say target. And then this target we say here dot revenue, and we save that. And now if I refresh, of course nothing happens. You might say, what's going on here? Why it's not happening? Of course, because the tooltip should eventually trigger based on the hoover. But of course, this will be only triggered once we set up a proper adjustment on this. Alright, so we have this here, and then I will just do the final item, and then we're going to work on the real tooltip section, because then we have everything working, but still not visible yet on the tooltip, so don't worry about that. So I'm going to remove this here. Now what we're going to do here, this here, just to make this work, we're going to have here a value, and what I'm going to do here, let's say this will be stock data. So I say here the following, I want to say here function stock data, and then we say dot value, or basically the value parameter. And in here I'm going to enclose this or nest this properly. Semicolon here, proper indentation here, and then we're going to say here this stock data. Where are we with that? Alright, that's this one here. This is 0 because we're going to grab this value of 0 and then we put this value in here. So we say 0, and then we can do here and here. This will be 1, this will be 2. So here value equals, and then we say here value, and there value, and this one value. So if I save this now, and this one here we maintain that. We don't adjust that one because that one will stay steady. Refresh. Alright, so now you can see here, this is the old data. Month, or the days are in here. Press on this, it changes here. Click on that, changes again, and this changes as well. Alright, so you can see here it changes consistently. And this is very nice. So this is basically what we want. Now what we want to do here, and we could even do the item here, but that's alright for now. No need for this, but you will understand that the value here is matching. So let's say here, what is this? If I click on startup, alright, the value here is 18. And this is the item here, so it's value at the bottom. Revenue would be 18, that is correct, or probably will be 18, it's one or the other. But you can see it matches properly. Alright, now what I want to do is in here, we're going to work on the tooltip part, because the tooltip here is eventually the one that we need. So we go in here in the options, and I put a comma here, because we're going to focus here. But for the tooltips, we do plugins, and in the plugins, we say tooltip. And in here, the tooltip basically is this. Alright, what we need to do here is a callback. And this callback is essential, so we say here, this callback will be called the following. We say callbacks. Alright, and in the callbacks, we're going to grab here the label. What I want to adjust basically in the tooltip is not the weekly sales. I want to change this into a label, and that label will be, in this case, this target here. So you can see I have different numbers here on purpose, so it's easy to spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, all up to 7. And I repeat the same thing. It's basically repeat it on each of those. And we can give it another number just to make sure we have it, but that's basically the structure. So we say here, we're going to say the label, and the label will grab here the specific tooltip. And the tooltip will be, this will be tooltip items. This will grab the item here, so we say console log, and I see we have this tooltip item here. For some reason it gives here an error, so let's see what we have, or what am I missing here. Am I correct that this is too many with the callback? So I'm going to cut this out just to make sure. Alright, so we have this. Alright, so we had one excess of curly braces. So we say here back, we'll callbacks here. Then we have this. We say console.log, and in here, and I realize that we need to have here just one of these curly braces. Alright, just to make sure. We have this console.log, and we'll log in this here, and then once we have this, what we need to do here, just to make sure we need to make sure that this is a function. So we say I have this function here, console.log, log this tooltip item here. If I save this now, and then I go refresh here, alright, unexpected token on 136. We are missing a certain value here, most likely we are. Alright, this, and that, and that. As you can see, we're missing an item. We had another one. Just to make sure. Alright, sorry, just pay attention here. I guess for me, I'm also sometimes confused. So we just watch out with that. We have a lot of nested values in here. So now it works here. Alright, so if I hover over, you can see here nothing shows here, but we do get something out here. And what we get here is basically the information here. And we can check all of this information. We get the data sets and the data index, which is important. And then later on, we're going to grab here a certain value. So what I really want to extract here is basically this. I want to return a specific value. So we say return. So what do we want to return here? Well, you probably figured out one part of it. We're going to grab this one here. I'm going to grab this here for now. This console log here, we're going to return this. Semicolon. So what is this basically? Is the mychart.config.data datasets and then target. So we say, and this dataset 0. So we save this now, refresh, and you can see here. Alright, this is the issue you had as well. You said, well, I have an array. I have a problem here. We get an array. So if I click on this, I should expect here now all the values we get, which is correct, target 1 up to 7. Let's make this sure that this is really correct. I'm going to give this again here, and let's make this number 3. I just put in a value of 30 in here, so this is always number 3. And this one will be 20, so it's always the second array, or the second element. That's probably the right term, because array starts at 0. And here this is, no, so we leave that. So if I click on this, we see here this, alright, that's correct. If I click on that, we see here, oh, you can see here we still have some work to do there, alright, that's alright. Going to fix that later on. However, you do see here certain thing matching. So if I click on that, are we really getting this? This is 18. No, or do we see the real values? Well, we're going to work on that. That's alright, we're going to check that out. What I need to do here then is, of course, sorry. The reason why it's always showing this, of course, is that true? Well, I'm not 100% certain now about this, but we'll see. What I want to do here, let's remove this one here, because what I need to do here is basically grab the specific item. And what is the specific item here? Well, basically this. And I want to grab here the data index. So how do we do this? We say the tools item dot data index. If I save that, I will grab only the specific one. So if I refresh now, I hover over it in here, you can see here we get 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 0 up to 6. Alright, that's the one we need. We need to grab this specific item here. So we're going to grab this. We say we're going to put it in here. Alright, once we do that, you can see here 6, Saturday. Alright, so we grab again this, and then we see here this. So that works, and then final, let's see if this really works. Alright, so this has still a tiny issue. So I'm going to now check what is the specific problem we have here and why it doesn't recognize the update. So that's what we're going to do right now here, or I guess we have this. Let's see here. Well, we have to work on. So I'm going to just check quickly what is the issue here specifically. Alright, so I assume that this is the things. I realize that probably we need to do a hard reload just to make sure that the cache has been removed, because this is what we did. We just updated it, and remember that sometimes we have a cache issue. So if I refresh this, you can see this works here. And I just refreshed here with a hard reload, and I guess that is the real issue. Well, let's confirm this one. There we are. So now we get this, and then if I can do this one here, that's it. Alright, so our code was perfectly fine, and then I already thought of what's going on here. So I figured it out. That's it. So if you still experience the issue, I'm going to show you again what I showed you previously. You go here to settings. Alright, you click on that wheel, or the settings wheel. And then we scroll down here, and we're going to look here somewhere at network. You click here on disable cache, while DevTools is active, I guess, or open. Alright. So what really happens is you will always forced to recache everything. What happens is it will load slower because it will have to reload all the new values here. And then you can see here when we click on this, we got this, and now it will automatically force to solve it. So this is the most important thing, because JSON probably will be cached in your Chrome browser, because it will save you time in reloading this specific file. But of course, when you updated it quickly, you know you get an issue. That's what we just experienced. And this is basically the answer here. So this is the entire answer. With the tooltip here, I'm going to remove this. Only do this when you really need this, because it will slow down your things, your loading. Better to do just a hard reload. Alright, so that was the entire issue, and that is basically how you play around with the tooltip here. So there's another way to do it with the data structures. I'll make a specific video for that as well. So if you enjoyed this video, I have still another video that's also interesting to watch. Then I would highly recommend you, if you especially want to learn about tooltips, this one here is the absolute video that you should absolutely watch, because it will show you everything about how to control, adjust, and modify your tooltip, or every feature that is. Absolutely best one to watch as well. So the link should pop up somewhere on the screen as of now.